Time for what?
Experience in college.
Time for reinforcement.
Time for liftoff!
Where nothing is impossible unless you think it is impossible.
College.
I have my college scholarship.
Yes.
Boom.
College ran by real fast.
You hung in with the best college.
First time for everything.
Well, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Let's do this thing.
Genius, let's do this thing!
Welcome to the show, everyone. And here is your COVID-19 update for college admissions. Again, we are here to inform you so you could be prepared. But remember, if anything I need to update you on is some common sense things first before we get into the nitty gritty. With all the stuff that is happening and all the changes, which is part of life, remember in college admissions, every college is looking for that great student to make their campus better. And that process is very subjective. So remember, a college will not determine your destiny. It would be you. So by continuing focusing on taking care of yourself, making sure every day you love yourself a little bit more, connecting with others, eating healthy, drinking plenty of water, constantly having movement and exercise is key. Whether it's jumping jack, cartwheels, or if you're running a marathon, you go do it. There's going to be a lot of different changes, but sometimes we have to remember with everything that's going on to take a moment, take a pause, take a deep breath. Hey, let's do it again. Let's take another deep breath. Thank you. Feel that oxygen in that brain. And let's know about all these changes. So if you're going to college, congratulations. And do you know about all the updates? So one live update that I love as a resource is the Insider Higher Ed, ed.com. You go to live updates, latest news on coronavirus and higher education, but also go to your portal of your college. You know where you're going to next year and find out what the policy. So, for example, Indiana University of Pennsylvania may require masks in class. Other places like University of Minnesota won't require vaccines from students, right? Other places like Marquette University in Wisconsin will require students to get vaccines. Yes, it's everywhere. And there's some like Stenson University offers vaccinated students a chance to win free tuition. Okay, right? So, but the thing is that you could see is there's all these different requirements. Like, for example, Catholic University is the only college in DC without vaccine requirements. So there's so many changes, so much going out there. So it's important to look at that. And if you're a prospective college student, keep and following these colleges, especially on their Twitter accounts, on their portals. Look at their COVID-19 updates. It's usually there's a COVID-19 update on every campus website to find out what is some of the things that's going on. And if you're a prospective student, you may also see Washington State Public four-year colleges go test optional permanently. So yes, let's go ahead and talk about testing. So if you are from the class of 21, congratulations. You made it possible to know that you do not need a test to get into some amazing schools. Yes, I do know students who have gone into Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Stanford, and even other great schools like San Francisco State, UC Merced, you name it, without any test scores. Yes, you heard me right. But were they hardworking students in their classes? Yes. Did they develop relationship with teachers to write great recommendations? Yes. Did they excel in tons of activities like unbelievable? No. Did they select a few activities to excel and they could really talk about their accomplishments and what did they develop in their passions? Yes. So keep in mind, test is just a number and you are no number. So let's talk about what's going on for the class of 2022. So more than half of the U.S. four-year colleges and university are ACT and SAT optional. Remember, testing is in a big question mark because there are decades, you heard me right, I've said this before, decades of research, how they are not a good measure. They are not a good measure for a student to be not only successful in admissions, but to complete college, right, on there, right? You could talk to a lot of CEOs who have had maybe average test scores, but that didn't determine their level of success. They did that on their own. And one of the things to know is that for fall 2022, right? So remember, though the school year is 2021, you're applying for fall 2022, that there are 1,350 U.S. colleges that are test optional or test free. Don't believe me? Go to fairtests.org. It's a nonprofit organization and has been pushing this agenda for many, many years. Still don't believe me? Well, 8 members of the Ivy League schools are still test optional. Also, other highly selective schools like Emory, Rice, Stanford, and many other flagship public universities like Ohio State, Penn State, Virginia, Wisconsin are also test optional. And the University of California and the Cal State University are test free. And there are decades of research showing that this works, not only for getting great students from various backgrounds, not only having students that give a variety of richness to the school, but go into many amazing careers. These schools that have been test optional for many years are continuing it, like Amherst, Bowdoin. So there are a lot of great things going on. One of the key leaders for Fair Test or Going Test Options stated, eliminating ACT, SAT requirements is a win-win for both schools and prospective applicants. Fair Test Directory of Test Optional Schools hosted an all-time high of more than 500,000 visitors last year in the first 6 weeks of 2021. Go check that out. That's something that's really important. So remember, if you want to take a test, you can, but if you're in California, availability to find a place to take it is going to be a big challenge because it's hard to put everyone in a big room because there's not a lot of policies of everyone being vaccinated or not for high school age kids, even though they can be vaccinated at this time. But remember, it's not because of COVID-19 that colleges are continuing being test optional. It's a business decision because they're getting record number of amazing applicants. Some schools, even through fall 2022 application, are going to be what's called test free. You may have also heard this test blind, but let's kind of use test free. It's a better term, meaning even if you have a perfect test score, they won't look at that because that's not going to be the accomplishment they want to look for. It's going to be about how you excelled in your classes, even beyond the GPA. You know, where did you go beyond? Like I've had a lot of times people say, I love this subject. And I go, well, did you go listen to lectures online? Did you do some experiments at home? And they'll go, no. I'm like, well, that's what they're looking for. So who are these schools? Well, have you heard of Caltech, the California Institute of Technology, a prime engineering school? Yes, test-free. Loyola University, New Orleans, permanently test-free forever. Reed College, an amazing school up in Oregon, test-free through fall 2022. And WPI, Rochester Polytechnic Institute, another great engineering school with amazing study abroad engineering internship, is permanently test-free. So test-free is here to stay. And also what's here to stay is more changes. So we'll definitely talk about this more and more. And we'll put this also on our Twitter account so you get to listen to some information. But let's also talk about financial aid. So some of you may be hearing that there's been some changes to the FAFSA form. Yes. So a lot of you may not know that Congress did sign a relief bill that put in there some changes for the free application for federal student aid. So remember, if you're applying for any financial aid, that's something that's important. And even if you've never received financial aid before, still apply for it because what if your kid loses that scholarship in college? Or what if there's some emergency that happens? It's always better to be safe than sorry, right? Why do you have car insurance? To be safe versus sorry. So what are some of these changes that's probably going to be happening? Listen up for the class of class of 23. These changes are most likely happening on the FAFSA for the 2023-2024 school year. And remember, the FAFSA becomes available October 1st. So this is not for the seniors who are applying for October 1st, 2021. This is mainly for the rising seniors who's going to be filling out their FAFSA application for October 1st, 2022. read the article on Twitter if I confused you already. So one good thing is there's 108 questions on FAFSA traditionally, and the FAFSA form can give you student loans through the federal government, much safer and more protections versus a private bank, grants, which is free money from the federal government, and work study where you could earn money with a flexible job on campus. And now the FAFSA may be only like 36 questions. Families will still be able to do what's known as the IRS data retrieval tool, where they could look at their tax information the prior year, right? So they're going to look at, for the class, just think of it this way. If you're a graduating class of 2020, right, they're going to look at the tax information from 2019, that year prior to you graduating, right? So you could they're going to look at archaic information. And what they're going to look at is what's known now as the Student Aid Index. Student Aid Index. Before it used to be the EFC, an estimated family contribution. And EFC usually said, hey, we expect you family to pay this much money. The problem is a lot of people would maybe get a sum of $10,000 or $0. Like, oh, great, that's all I need to pay. And then the college is like, oh, we don't have that much financially that we could give you, or the federal government. So it got a lot of families confused and required a lot more work on the college end. Well, now with the Student Aid Index, it makes it a lot clearer for families to see that after file the FAFSA, this amount isn't the amount of money they'll be required to pay in college. Instead, it'll be an indicator to them and to the colleges what their need is. So the SAI, again, the Student Aid Index, could also be a negative number. So it'd be really easy for a college to identify who's the neediest students applying to their campus. Remember, seniors, you want to apply the fall season prior to your graduation, okay, your senior year. So October 1st, make sure you start that application. Remember, get a treat versus a trick and fill out all your financial aid forms. And some schools, over 400 schools, also require the CSS profile, which is a lot more work. But every institution uses the FAFSA. Now, some more changes. Pell Grant. Remember I said grant is free money. You don't have to pay that back. Well, a little victory. A lot of people say it's major because it's been decades people have been fighting for it. The Pell Grant, which is geared for low-income families, has increased. So, which is rise up to $6,495 per student. Yes, per student, for the 2021-2022 year. And it's made it easier for people to qualify for the Pell Grant, right? It's not going to be looking just for the expected family contribution, right, which is the current case, right? They'll look at other variables to determine it, meaning family size, right? I remember I had a family size of 12. It's like, wait, they're not going to look at my size of the family, even though it's so large. Now they will. And they'll also look at your adjusted gross income. Don't know what that is? Look at your tax form. There is a section there that says what your adjusted gross income when your family files for taxes. They will no longer use the federal poverty guidelines. And as you know, let's say, for example, if you live in the Bay Area, that, the cost of living makes a big difference for your gross income and other situations. Also, some good news for people could be eligible for the Pell Grant. But again, this is for 2023-24 incarcerated students participating in prison education programs. So if you did not know this, they haven't been allowed to qualify for Pell Grant since 1994. How are people supposed to get better if they can't get educated? Well, now in 2023, they could get the Pell Grant. Students who had drug-related convictions in their past, those who couldn't complete their studies because their school closed down, or they qualify for student loans cancellation due to a borrowed defense repayment. Also, because of unemployment due to national emergency, a lot of people did lose their jobs in COVID-19. The financial aid officer could make some decisions because of unemployment, and all you have to show them, like, hey, I'm getting unemployment benefits. They could qualify for the Pell Grant. And some good news about subsidized loans, right? So federal subsidized loans are available to undergraduate students who demonstrate financial need. So, for example, Bill Gates' children could get unsubsidized loans, right? Because you don't need to demonstrate need, but subsidized, you have to demonstrate, I need this money. So the government will pay for the interest for a certain amount of time And there's some post-graduation grace period that you could qualify for, right? But now with this new appropriations bill, this eliminates this time limit. So students can get subsidized loans for as long as it takes to complete their education program, right? If I need to, take a break from school to help be a caregiver, or if I, want to start my family and I need to go part-time, right? So this extends